My name is Javier Angel Morales. I am the past president of the 65th Infantry Veterans Association. I served for about 5 years. Our organization was comprised started with the members of the 65th Infantry Regiment. And they were the ones that organized this association in 1936. At one time we had numbers of about 500 members. Nowadays we have something about 150. We did have to open up the association to allow veterans from other conflicts or wars to become members, because we want to continue the legacy that the 65th Infantry gave to Puerto Rico. As to the Buccaneers, there was a voluntary army, first of all, in 1917. They were all voluntary. They didn't have to be drafted. The draft came in World War II. After World War II, then came Korea. During the Korean War, there were a lot of draftees. I could relate to some of the stories given to me by the different veterans, where they were in a small little town, but when they heard that there was a truck coming picking up those that would like to join the service, they jump on the truck and be taken to Fort Buchanan. Some of them, one person told me that it was the 4th time he was trying to get in the truck, but they turned him down because his age was not the legal age to be drafted. But at the 4th time, I think they just gave up on him and they took him in. Like I said, most of them were drafted. There were a lot of, the regiment was composed of veterans that were from the World War I, World War II. They had been volunteer and they were ready to retire, but they were asked to stay so they could train the new recruits, and so most of them did that. That's why I think the regiment was so experienced during the first years of the war, that they were able to accomplish what the different battles that they had.
How many served and how many suffered casualties?
The count that I have from Puerto Rico was about 63,000. Out of those 63,000, there were 2,700 that were wounded in action. There were about 740 that were killed in action. And out of those 740, there were 122 that were missing in action. Currently, I think there's about 110 or 112 that are still missing in action. And as they find their bodies, or they're able to identify them, they are added to the Wall of Remembrance in San Juan.
If there's
the regiment, I'm sorry.
So if there's, I know the 65th earned the Congressional Gold Medal.
Yes.
Of course, I'm partial and I know they deserved it, but not everybody knows. So why?
Okay, the regiment was very successful, and they had a maneuver here in Vieques called Portrex. They went against the best unit from the United States, the 82nd Airborne, and they were able to repel that invasion. And so that stayed in the mind of Colonel Harris. And when Colonel Harris was in Korea, they asked him that they needed a infantry unit to be able to go to Korea because they were running short. So he said, well, I have the regiment that I would like to bring here. And he mentioned the 65th Infantry Regiment. But they were, the high brass was very reluctant, because one of the things they said is, but they've never fought. During World War I, only one battalion fought, which was the 3rd Battalion, and there were 2 casualties. And then during World War II, they were mainly to secure or security of the different bases or the different places in the Caribbean and in Europe. During the Korean War, they were a infantry regiment, and they were well prepared because, like I mentioned before, a lot of them were veterans from the World War II, had experience, had training necessary to be in battle, and so that training went on to the new recruits that came in. When they got to Korea, they were instrumental in helping the 1st Marine Division exit from the surrounding of by the Chinese. Although the Chinese were pushing us back into the sea, the 65th Regiment was the last unit to disembark or to get on the boats, because they were the last ones that were safeguarding the back of all the other soldiers.
2 last very simple questions. One is, you're not even a Korean War veteran. Why do you care about them so much? Okay, so that's one. And 2, tell the Korean people why they shouldn't forget the 65th.
When I was in the service, I was serving in Germany, and one of my fellow compatriots mentioned the 65th Infantry. I never knew anything about the 65th. I wasn't interested because I just wanted to serve my 2 years and leave. When I retired at 60, there was another instance where I was in Connecticut, and I overheard somebody say, the 65th, they didn't do anything right, you know? And that kind of like stayed on my mind. I says, I gotta find out about that. So when I retired at 60, I said, I need to go to Puerto Rico because I want to see Puerto Rico, the 78 municipalities, and I did that. But before that, I told my wife, I just started crying, and I said, what's the problem? She says, well, you're gonna get old on me and you're gonna die. And I said, that scared me. And I said, no, I gotta do something. So I came to Puerto Rico. 6 months I went around the island. Meantime, my brother was calling me. He says, look, I need you to help me. And I said, help you what? He said, I need you to help me find veterans that were wounded, because I want to start an organization in Puerto Rico called the Purple Heart Organization, to be able to recruit them, have a chapter, and register the National Purple Heart Hall of Honor. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. Meantime, the president of the 65th Infantry Association was after me and telling me the same thing. Look, I need your help. You're the youngest, and I need to make sure that people don't forget this organization.
So lastly, to the Korean people, why should they not forget the Burangineers?
To the Korean people, I first of all want to thank him very much, because I had the opportunity to go to Korea, and the 65th Infantry was very instrumental in safeguarding your country. They were very instrumental in making sure that democracy was installed in Korea. They were very happy to be able to defend your country. A lot of them gave their lives. They shed the blood and they shed the tears, but they did it for a purpose. They wanted you to be happy, your generations in the future to be happy, to be able to live in democracy. And so the sacrifice that were made by the 65th Infantry Regiment have not gone in vain. Your country has progressed quite a bit. Your people are very nice, and we really appreciate the way you think about us, the Puerto Ricans, and the 65th Infantry Regiment.